Hey everyone, in this lesson we're converting decimals to percents and then percents back to decimals. First step, decimals to percents. It says to convert a decimal to a percent, you multiply the decimal by 100 or move the decimal two places to the right. So you can grab a calculator and do this along with me, or you can just simply move the decimal. Either one is going to help you. Now, if I take 0.65, that's really 65 hundredths, correct? If I take that and I move the decimal two places to the right, 1, 2. Notice I drew it here with arrows, 1, 2. That decimal is not going to now be in front of the 6. It's actually going to get moved after the 5. It's going to be 65 decimal. Now, when it's just 65 and then a decimal, it's not going to have any decimal there at the end. We don't even need to leave it. It's just 65%. That's it. If I have 1.2 and I want to change that to a percent, I take the decimal, I move it two spots to the right. 1, 2. Now, if I put the decimal there, I have this blank spot here. What number would I fill in after any value, especially if I'm working with decimals, and any number that would get put there? It's really just a 0. So if I have a 0 there in that spot and I then move the decimal over, 1, 2, I now have 120%. Notice the first problem, 0.65 or 65 hundredths, it's 65%. It's less than 100%. But when I have a decimal value that's greater than 1 and I change it to a percent, notice the percent is greater than 100%. Something good to notice. Now, if you have a calculator ready and you want to go ahead and type in 0.65 times 100, that's the other strategy, you'll get 65. If you take 1.2 and multiply that by 100, you'll get 120. 0.032, if I take that decimal and I move it two spots to the right, 1, 2, the decimal would then be in between the 3 and the 2, and I would have 3.2%. Now, what I always tell my students is think about money, right? If I was to cover up this 2 here, that looks like 3 cents. 3% is 3 cents. 65 cents is 65%. Right? So your money looks like that. So if I have 0.032, that's a little bit more than 3 cents. It's 3.2%. Let's take a look at these now. 0.56 to a percent. I move the decimal two spots over, 5.6%. 2.54, if I move the decimal over two spots to the right, 1, 2, I get 254%. 18.79, I move the decimal to the right two times. 1, 2, I get 1,879%. That's a big one. 605.7, if I move that decimal over two spots. 1, 2, again, I have a filler spot that I need to fill in with a 0. And that ends up becoming 60,570%. 0.0089, I move that decimal over two spots. 1, 2. Now the decimal is in front of my 8, so it's 0.89%. And the last one, 0.071, I move the decimal two spots. Boom, boom. And now that decimal is in between the 7 and the 1 to get 7.1%. On this side, I encourage you to go ahead, pause your screen, see if you can write down what you think these answers are, and then press play. And then I will reveal all of the answers and you can check to see how you did. Ready? Go ahead and pause. Okay, hopefully you just press play after doing pause and we can check our answer. 18 is 1,800%. 0.4, 40%. 0.0007 is 0.07%. The next one would be 45,801%, 63%, and 225%. Second part now, percents back to decimals. So instead of moving the decimal two spots to the right or multiplying by 100, to go from percents to decimals, we do the opposite. We divide by 100 or move the decimal two spots to the left. Now, very often here, we're going to get problems where we don't see a decimal in the problem at all. But we always have to remember the decimal is really at the end, all the way on the right. So when I say 54%, I know that's 54 point and then 0%. There's really a decimal there. So if I take this decimal and I move it two spots to the left, it would look like this. 1, 2. 1, 2. And so the decimal that really exists at the end of 54 gets moved 1, 2 units over to the left, and now my decimal looks like 0.54. 198%. I know that there's really a decimal at the very end of my 8. And so if I was to move the decimal over from there, 1, 2, now my decimal's in between the 1 and the 9, and it's 1.98. Last one, 3.6%. I see my decimal. If I send that over 2 spots to the left, 1, 2, I notice I have an empty space. We know that we need to fill in that 0 as a placeholder for that spot. 1, 2, you can see that empty spot, and I end up getting 0.036. Now, if you want to grab your calculator and do 54 divided by 100, you'll get this decimal. 198 divided by 100 gets you 1.98, and 3.6 divided by 100 will get you 0.036. We're going to follow the same model that we did from the top set of problems. I'm going to guide you through the problems on the left, and then you're going to do the problems on the right on your own, and then check your answers after. Ready? 47%. I know there's a decimal at the end. I move that 2 spots to the left, 1, 2. My decimal now is in front of my 4, and I get 0.47. 1.34%. I take the decimal, I move it 2 spots to the left, 1, 2. I have a placeholder 0 that would need to get filled in, and so I get 0.0134. 75.5%. Take that decimal, move it 2 spots to the left, 1, 2. I now have 0.755. 200%. I know my decimal is really at the end. I go 1, 2. Now it's in between my 2 and my 0, which is really just 2, 2.0, or I can really just write it as 2. 8.6%. Move it over. 1, 2. I notice I have a placeholder 0 that I need to put in that spot, and I end up getting 0.086. And the last one, 1,024%. I have a decimal at the end. I'm going to go ahead and move that over 2 spots to the left, which leaves me with 10.24. Awesome. So now what I'm going to ask that you do is you go ahead and pause your screen, go ahead and write down what you think the answers are for these problems on the right, and then press play when you're ready to check your answers. All right, hopefully you're joining me back from pressing play. After you wrote down what your answers are, let's see how we did. Ready? First one should be 0.521. Next one, 0.0004. Next one, 0.005607. Next one, 9.73. Next one, 0.4567. And the last one, 0.00123. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.